Is thinking.
Okay.
It says on my meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Wonderful. So welcome back, entire audience. You missed some great rigorous debate about an opportunity for us to extend a loan to the new Kemper or the revitalized Kemper brand. Toward that end, I turn it over to the credible board to propose a recommendation as to whether or not we fund the ask of Mr. Jib Hunt. Jim, you had a really
I'll put forward a proposal that we authorize the requested 100,000. He can take that 100,000 in 2 tranches if he'd prefer, at 7% interest. We would seek a second position on his home, and we would make the offer contingent upon a visit with Isabel, confirming his financials.
In the length of term, we didn't talk about the length of time. Jessica, is there a standard length of time for us?
Yeah, 5 years is our standard.
Perfect. So Jim, would you add that?
5 years and make that a 5-year flat payment? Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Anybody second that? Mark?
Second
it. Mark and Luke seconded it. Okay. All in favor?
it. Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion carries to support the Kemper brand with a loan from the Mountain Land Revolving Loan Fund. Okay, well, thank you for your participation in that discussion. Are there other points of business that we need to discuss? By the way, Isabel, when do you think you could reach out to get us a yay or nay? We'd like to have that as part of the motion, a date certain where we can hear from you affirmatively or not.
So I will call him this afternoon after our meeting and set up a time. Hopefully we can do it, before Friday.
Okay.
I mean, because I'm in Hebrew, he's in Midway. We're super close to each other.
So
Yeah,
should we put then as one modification, Jim, of yours is that we would have a certain affirmative yes or no by the 11th, so a week from Friday or sooner?
That sounds great.
Okay. Anybody second that modification?
I'll second it as well.
Okay. Mark and Luke have both seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, there's no additional, except for when's our next meeting?
We actually have 3 more items on the agenda for today.
Well, I'm looking here on the loan decision, ideas for getting funds out,
Mm-hmm.
application process updates, and 20, I was looking just at the schedule, sorry about that.
Okay. So Brad had wanted to have some discussion at this meeting about ideas for getting more loans out the door, but he's not here. So I don't know if any of you have ideas. We obviously only made, well, including this one, will be 2 loans in 2020, and we made probably 2 or 3 in 2019. So it's probably time for us to reach back out to the SBDC and let them know that we have funds to make available, and also for the board to remind you that we do if you want to send referrals our way. But if you want to discuss any other ideas you have.
Will you be reaching out to Mike Finnerty, or how would you like the SBDC to be notified that we have loans for?
We can reach out, or any of our board members who have connections. I'd be happy.
I'll be happy to reach out to Mike.
Okay, great.
Because I see Jan Aaron on a regular basis, I'll give him a note as well. He manages the Summit County.
Okay.
With the Salt Lake SBDC.
Gotcha. Okay, that's perfect.
It seems like the loan amounts have been significantly higher. I mean, we've really creeped up towards the 100,000 range as opposed to the 30, 40, 50. Is that a trend we're okay with?
Any comments?
As long as they're good loans. It's when they go bad that we're
Yeah.
thankful they're not.
They go bad big.
Yeah, they do.
Let's just not do any more candy machines.
All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, what about the application process updates?
Yeah, so-
Process updates.
Yeah, I wanted to go through, so here at MAG, we run a couple different programs in our Community and Economic Development Department. We are migrating all of those to new online software called Neighborly, and we are going to be doing that with our RLF servicing as well. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to just review our application materials and our process, and just make sure that everything is functioning as optimally as it can be. We're also, MAG is launching a website redesign probably in the next couple of weeks. And so we want to build an RLF page that's a better resource. And that would be, available for you to use as you make referrals to direct people to that website where they can get some of the information and contact. So I did want to go over a couple of things in the application and our approval process, standard loan requirements and things like that. So if everyone's buckled in, our meeting is scheduled till 1:30. Are you guys up for it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. So April and I have been looking at our application materials. We've been talking about the process. We are a little bit rusty because we've gone such long periods of time between applications. And so we just want to make sure that that's all running smoothly. We want to make sure that the applications are as streamlined as possible, as easy for applicants to fill out, but also getting you the right information that you need to make decisions. We want to minimize as much follow-up as possible so that we can shorten that timeline between interview and approval and getting them the funds. And we also want to make sure that we're providing equitable access to credit in our community. That's one of the main goals of our program, is to make sure that job creation and credit is equitable to everyone. So the first question, I'm glad we had an applicant today. You got to see the application. Just as a general review, does the application, as you saw at the body of it, does it capture the information that you need? Is there anything in there that we don't really need and can get rid of? When we move to this new online software, we are hopefully going to be accepting applications online as well. And so I think it will be a much cleaner experience instead of a PDF that's 300 pages long. Good luck scrolling to find everything. I hope that will be a better experience for you. But as far as the content of the application goes, does that get you the information that you need?
I think so. There's a lot of information. Not all the fields were completed by Jim, but I felt like what he provided in his business plan was sufficient, along with the background that he did include for me. But yeah, there's a lot of information there for them to complete.
Yeah, so would you prefer that we still ask for that in the application, or that we rely more heavily on supporting documents to get the information?
I don't think it hurts to ask to keep the information there. I don't know what does everybody else think?
I would prefer that we keep it in the application.
Yeah.
I'm going to also screen share the checklist of supporting documents that they need to provide so that you can see this. Give me 1 second. Let's see. There we go. Is this too small? Can you see this?
No, we can read it.
Okay, so these are all the exhibits that we tried to collect, and that's what, you saw Jib's application, that's the result of this list. So if you give this a look, is this everything you need? Are there things we can cut out? There have been suggestions that full-blown business plans are sort of out of date, and that executive summaries are becoming more the norm, something to consider.
Hey, one thing that we're doing at the Miller campus is having potential clients do a 1 or 2 minute video of themselves. And because I was just listening to him today, and I wish I would have had heard him talk before I actually got to ask him questions, because he had some really good things to say. But anyways, I'm just putting that out there because that also forces the applicant to be prepared as well for when they come in and talk to us.
So we could do a short video. What would you want from them in that video?
Just 1 or 2 minute explainer video. Say, hey, this is Jib. I'm doing this, this, and this, just to kind of, again, it shows that they're getting a little bit more prepared, but it also allows us to maybe get more information. And again, this was all come about because of the pandemic and having to kind of do everything remotely. So that's just
I like that. It's like an elevator pitch. We don't have to ask them, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. In that 2 minute, they're going to give you the background that you want to hear. And then we can get on to maybe more poignant questions from there.
Yeah. Yep.
Great idea. We can definitely try and collect that.
My thought was, I do think we're still investing in the individual, and I didn't see a lot in there. I saw there was a check there for a resume, but I don't know that he completed or submitted that with him.
He did.
I saw his resume.
Was it?
It's in the package.
Yeah.
Towards the bottom?
Yeah, it's a big attachment, but yeah, it's towards the bottom. I want to say about 3/4 the way, but
that's where I knew he had done the apparel piece. That's why I was questioning him about it, because of his resume in there.
And this is another reason we're just trying to move to a better platform for accepting applications, so it's not so difficult.
Yeah, and I used it. I filled it out, Jessica, on behalf of that summary page, and that was very straightforward. I've seen some really lousy ones.
You're talking about for our CDBG program?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing a Google form for that right now, but we're going to be using a full-blown software for the full application, but it's pretty slick. I think it's going to be really easy to navigate, hopefully.
Well, it was Neighborly is what was the site I went to.
Oh.
Jess sent it to me.
Okay.
in this application, it says copies of insurance policies or quotes. What insurance policies are we looking for there?
Yeah, that's been a little bit hit or miss, and this is the only checklist I have to work from. So what would you find useful?
I don't necessarily think, unless it's like life insurance, just for, additional.
If there's key man insurance,
Yeah.
then we would want to be named as a conditional beneficiary.
Yeah, an assignee, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So, but that's, at this stage, that they don't have that.
Yeah.
So do you want to remove that requirement altogether, or?
Is there any other insurance other than key man that anybody can think of that they might have that benefits us?
I think it depends, right? It's case by case on what it is that they're doing for business. And so I guess, at that point we could ask them, but.
Maybe we just change the word and say relevant, that may be relevant to the business as well. I doubt we're asking for auto insurance and.
Yeah.
Right.
So that will be an optional document if they provide anything that's relevant to the business. Is that what you're suggesting?
And maybe we put in parentheses some things like, example, key man.
Subject to or something, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the goal today is that we would, go over these things and get recommendations from you. And then April and I will work together to put down a written document for you to review and approve at the next meeting. So this is really just review and recommendation. Nothing to approve right now.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that list? The business plan, do you want to maintain that requirement? Are you okay with an executive summary?
Well, I do want financial forecasts. That to me, that's a pretty important tool for determining how you're going to actually start making money.
I like the business plan, and they can provide an executive summary in addition to, but a business plan for me shows just how equipped and capable this person is, or persons,
All right. Another question we have about the application, we have some instances where an owner is maybe 5% owner. How much personal and financial information do you want us collecting from those owners? We are thinking we need to require at the application stage that all owners sign off so that they're aware that a loan is being applied for, but is there any other step in the process where someone with a small ownership needs to be involved in this? And how much information do you want from each of those types of
So
owners.
I'm an SBA lender strictly, and so SBA rule is anybody who has at least 20% or more ownership. So I think that's a good,
Threshold.
threshold. I don't know any opinions otherwise. I mean, we can ask if there's a limited guarantee that we can ask for if someone who has less than that, if needs be, but 20 is the SBA standard anyway.
Yeah, that's a decent threshold for me.
Okay, so any of the required information pertains to 20% owners or greater. Okay. And then we had talked about asking COVID specific questions. I think we kind of got at it in today's interview, but do you want that integrated formally into the application itself?
I don't think so, because I mean, that's assuming that COVID will be a permanent condition of our lives. If that's the case,
let's not jinx ourselves.
If that's the case, take me off the board. I've got a handgun. I'm going to go up in the foothills and feed the coyotes.
Okay, so we'll take that out.
Yeah, you can have a separate Form A for the time being for the next, 6 months or something potentially.
And what kind of question do you want in that?
Its impact, if they've got any, PPP or EIDL funds, that sort of thing.
And he did provide that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Okay, we
Wouldn't
can
that be
incorporate that until
redundant?
it's not relevant. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Isn't that redundant? I mean, because we ask for loans, and whether it's a PPP loan or some other kind of loan, we're asking for any of the loans they've got.
True. It would be on their debt schedule, right? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you don't feel like that's a typical debt potentially. I don't know. I see your point though.
I would kind of like to put, I guess I feel likewise. Maybe this won't be part of our lives forever, and it is a thing that impacts business. But I've got some friends' businesses that are up triple because of COVID. Ours is up, 20, 30% because of COVID, and some are decimated because of COVID. But there's also every other experience in life that happens that causes businesses to go up and down. And I don't know. I don't feel the need that it be a specific question on this application. I think it's
Jessica, is there any advantage that in the addition we get another stimulus program and that gets pushed out to the various jurisdictions that, if those questions are on an application, that the application can be converted to an application for that type of grant funding?
Okay.
So that somebody doesn't have to fill out two.
Say that again. I'm sorry. You want?
Well, yeah. So like normally, we've had to create new applications for any type of CDBG, CV, or
CARES funds.
or CARES funds grant application. So if there were a way to convert one of these revolving loan fund applications to those types of applications in the event that funding is available first, because if I were an applicant and that stimulus funding became available first and I were eligible for it, why wouldn't I seek a grant as opposed to a loan?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is up to the jurisdiction. So I know Summit County did some of that. And if you would accept an RLF application, yes. But we are using different programs to administer those CARES and COVID related funds versus the RLF. But if the jurisdiction is willing to accept it, sure.
And aren't the sizes pretty significantly different?
Yeah, those are much smaller.
Yeah.
But we have, I mean, I don't know, Jeff, we've tried to make those applications as simple as possible so that it doesn't get too burdensome for people to get access to that.
Right. Maybe it's something we can't, maybe it just has to be that way and it's just two separate.
Yeah, there can be different requirements too, depending on who's granting out that money. So maybe when we put together changes to the application in the draft that we'll have you review, we can put a COVID question in there and you can decide if you like that or not, if it's too cumbersome. How do you feel about that? Moving on to the interview process, I'd been out of the RLF in 2019, but there was a suggestion made early on that we establish some standard baseline questions for the interview, or areas to address. And again, that's to give us some of the same information to work off and have an equitable process for these businesses. So we put together, April, if you want to share, if you want to do this process, great, and if not, but we put together a list of a couple items that we think either could be questions to ask, and maybe these are things we could have them address in their 1 or 2 minute video. We could also establish some scoring criteria to give us a base to start discussion from, or we could just have some of these as considerations for discussion as decisions are made. So we just taking feedback we've gotten, and we just wanted to present this for you to respond to. Is this helpful for us to establish something that we review in each interview or when you look through each application? So we're presenting this for you to let us know, is this helpful or is this not?
I think letting the applicants see these and say, we would like you to address these in your presentation would be helpful.
Okay.
Because it would probably speed up some of the Q&A time. If we have to ask a question and then we respond, it can take 3 or 5 minutes, but they can answer a question in about 15 seconds that isn't asked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely thought we'd like to prepare them to come answer whatever questions you might have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So then if you don't mind, will you distribute that? Because I didn't see an email with this attached. If you could distribute this, I would love to add a couple of questions, or even maybe modify the ones you have.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, again, just something for you to respond to. So we're happy to have any changes, additions, delete anything. So we'll send that out. And if you'll just let us know questions you want to add, take away, change, and which ones you would like them to prepare ahead of time versus, something you just may want to ask in the interview.
Got it.
And do you want this covered in their intro video, or these are questions just to come to the interview ready to answer or ready to provide an answer to unasked?
I love the idea that John put forward of that intro video, where if they answer these questions, then they come and make the presentation, and then we get asked questions about the two.
Okay. So I think if we want to have this done in that intro video, we should try and pare this down to some of the most crucial.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any interest in doing a scoring rubric or criteria, anything like that, or would you rather just the flexibility to on a case by case?
I kind of prefer flexibility.
Me too.
Okay. Okay. So that's great. We will send this out and get feedback. Is a 2-week turnaround time sufficient for this board?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. One more question about interviews. Is the 20-minute time frame sufficient? I think if we do this prep on the front end, it may be okay, but I know we're always pushing against that time limit.
Yeah, I wouldn't shorten it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my question. Do you want them longer? And if so, we would have to narrow it down to just probably 1 applicant per meeting.
I think if we get them to do an explainer video, that's gonna help.
Okay, great. Then we'll keep it as is. Okay, next item, I want to go into the decision-making and post-interview follow-up. I think at the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, there was a new process established for follow-up, and we have not been implementing it so far. Again, we're going such long periods between applications. So I wanted to review what was passed on to me as I took over this responsibility and make sure this is something you want to pursue or not. So the process I have established for 2020 is that the entire board will interview just as we did today and make an initial decision. But then 2 board members would be assigned to do follow-up, second follow-up interview with that applicant. And then those 2 board members would have the final decision making, yes or no. And we would provide a list to the applicant of follow-up information or documents required before that meeting is held. So is that a standard procedure you want to apply? I think we did in today's scenario, Isabel was assigned for the final review. Is that a scenario you want to apply to all applications? Do you want to have 2 board members and MAG staff involved in that, as was originally recommended? What do you want to do moving forward with that?
I think we should just do that on a case-by-case basis as well, depending upon the strength of the application.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay. So maybe each time we make a decision, we'll just check back and see if we want to implement that process for further review. Does that sound okay? And do you want to establish any dollar amount thresholds that a second review would be required for larger amounts?
I think we should just do it. If we're going to do it, let's just do it. Because I mean, if they default, it doesn't matter. To me, it shouldn't matter. I don't think it matters if it's 25,000 or 75,000. We're still out that money. So.
Right. Is that being suggested because we need a stopgap and we've had a higher than national average on our defaults, or what's going on?
That was a recommendation from the board. There was discussion that sometimes the decisions are being made really quickly, and that some board members wanted time to do further review, or that there's more follow-up that's needed. And so just wanted to let you know a week's space to do that follow-up and do more in-depth review. So it was at the board's suggestion.
I think we already have the flexibility to recommend that if we feel it's warranted, just like we did today.
Yeah, case by case basis. I mean, yeah.
I agree.
Okay. We'll include that in the process that we outlined, that's an option that we'll visit each time to see if that's necessary. Okay. And then for loan holders that come back for a second loan, generally we don't require such a thorough application or such a thorough review process. So for example, they wouldn't get that second interview. Do you want to make any exceptions for those, or do you want to require them to do the full application as we do first time applicants?
I think it's okay to ask the question if there's been any significant change, you know, that would impact their business operation since their original application.
Including like additional loans and leads.
Right.
And
that's where I was good at, Jim.
All the
Yeah.
And
have you just like gone out and put everything you own on everything else and built up 3 times the debt? Now you're asking for more, or is it just to follow on to our simple loan?
Yeah, balance sheet would matter to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, business debt schedule, updated interim financials.
Right.
So, okay, so just an updated full application essentially.
Well, updated financials.
Financial,
Okay.
yeah.
And make
Just
sure,
financials.
and on the financials, make sure you have like a year-to-year comparison too.
Yeah, rolling.
That's a lot more information when you have that.
Great idea, Isabel.
Okay, and then as staff, we also want to recommend that any decision to deny applications has a documented justification just for our records. So we're going to propose that in the document e-review next time. And then last item, the loan terms and conditions.
So one more time on that. So if we turn down an application like before it gets here, or are you saying when
no, after the interview process, yeah, if you decide not to.
Then we have to come up with reasons?
Yeah, you don't need to come up with reasons, but probably just a one sentence. We generally, as a courtesy, provide them an explanation of why, or if there are other steps they could take to get ready to come back for that. So usually just
We're trying to protect them from themselves.
That's I think that's reasonable that we at least give a reason, you know, we're concerned about, and you know, financials or the depth of the management team or the viability of the idea, you know, whatever that is. I think there's we don't have to give a dissertation.
No.
So is that for the applicant, or is that for some other purpose?
Twofold, I think, for the applicant, but also just for our program. You know, these records can be grandmaed, and so we just want to make sure that we're applying a fair process to everybody. And if people are being denied, that there's a reason for that.
Okay, so it's trying
Which
to make sure that we
always
don't have some legal liability when we turn somebody down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good, Jessica.
Okay, and then last thing, when a loan is made, returning to the interest rate, that is set by the committee. We have a ceiling, but we don't have a floor. So it's up to you ultimately to set the interest rate, but just keeping in mind that these are higher risk loans. So again, that 7 to 8.5% is usually where we've been through the history of the committee.
Yeah, I think the standard that I would follow is if they have debt on the books like today, that our interest rate be higher than the debt they have on the books.
Okay.
Now that's just a good guideline.
Yep.
And Jim, when we ask that question,
Yeah.
Yeah, you aren't going to pay off 6% interest at 7% interest.
No. It's I just want to be a good reason to pay me off first.
Right, exactly, right. But I also don't. But likewise, I also want to be the draconian, vulture on interest.
Right.
Okay, so we'll probably just recommend a range similar to what we have, but then add that caveat that it should just at least be higher than.
So, for example, today, if his was at 8% or 7.5% or whatever, we probably would have recommended a different.
Yeah, 8%. I would have clicked in my head that the half point makes a difference.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll incorporate that. And then I wanted to also go over the standard conditions that we usually apply to a loan. There was a lot of discussion in our last loan to 10 Sisters. It's standard for us to do a UCC filing, personal guarantees, and now we're adding quarterly meetings with an SBDC counselor. Are those the correct standard conditions to apply to everybody? Are there any others you want to add as a standard? In Jib's case, we've done a second on the home. I think if we do want to add any that are beyond what our standard conditions are, again, just that we document those so that we are careful not to make this more laborious for some than others without a set reason.
How would we document the quarterly meeting with an advisor? How would we document and track that?
We're not documenting that right now, but I think we could require some reporting if you
I would put that back on the applicant that they have to, we give them a pre-printed form of some kind, and they go and have their meeting, and then they send us that form that has some information on it. Now, who they met with, the date, and we put that in the, collect that and put that in the file.
Yep, we can do that. Are there any other standard conditions you want to require of all?
Aren't we a secondary option? And if we are, I don't want to make it more onerous than it already is.
Yep.
And in terms of the terms, we've got our kind of like standard terms. I don't think help me if I make sure I understand right. Our goal isn't to make sure that all our terms are the same for everybody.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. Just that there's reasonable explanation for why they are what they are.
Okay.
All the deliberation happens in a closed session, so we just want to make sure that we have a justifiable process in place.
Right. Because every person, every presentation in this world, they're all so different.
Yeah.
That I don't see that there's a rational way to put a rubric together that says, okay, here's the terms of these that this one should get. It's like they're all going to be unique.
Yeah,
and you could actually line out ratios, and do ratio analysis, and then say you get 5 points if you're within this ratio and 4 if you're this. But I don't think that tells the story on a loan of this size.
Even this one, the rate, we would have quoted a different rate based on his existing loan rates, which anyway.
We would have just referred back to our policy that it's always higher than their existing rates. That's the only justification I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Is that a policy?
No, it's not a policy. That's what we're talking about. Like, should there be a set policy that we're following?
Okay, so maybe I'm like going against the grain here. Our company has a very small employee policy book because the minute you put a policy in place and you don't follow that policy, then for some reason you're a bad person, and you can't make a policy for the myriad of differences that there can be and still be fair and right. And so policies don't necessarily make the decision fair and right because you have a policy. In fact, frequently policies get in the way of making it fair and right and just. So my preference would be to have as few policies as are reasonable.
That's brilliant.
That's a policy.
That's
right
a
there.
policy. I don't know.
Okay, we put
Maybe
that
maybe
policy
I'm
into play.
yeah maybe I'm on the minority here, but I like to do the right thing. And when you have a policy that says X and the right thing is X plus 0.2, then it binds you. It gets in the way of doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think we would definitely need to find the right balance. So we're happy to, put something together and make a recommendation, and ultimately you can decide,
Okay.
what you apply and what you don't.
We want to do the right thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Depending upon the policy.
What's that?
Nothing. I said depending upon the policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reasonableness kind of standard that we all have to pass. But I think you put a policy in place where there's a systemic problem that we believe the policy would resolve. If there's no systemic problem, that's why I was asking, is there a default rate higher than it should be? Or if we're not getting money out, then making it more our owners to get money out. Establishing policies becomes counterproductive to the, one of the elements, which is how do we get all the money working?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I agree with you, Jim, and you're not in the minority.
Okay, good. I'm just the vocal one.
So we can scrap it all together. I don't want to waste our time working on something that the board doesn't want, honestly.
I think instead of policies, you could call them guidelines, maybe, if there's some.
Absolutely. Guidelines is the word I should have used.
Then I think you had us at hello then, Jessica.
That's perfect. Sorry about the semantics.
But they're important. The words have meanings.
No, absolutely. And I guess, yeah, we definitely mean them as guidelines just so that we have sort of an expectation of how this process works and what we can communicate with applicants. And, when we do get funding from, for example, the CDBG program, that we can report back that we have some sort of process in place that is fair and equitable.
And, I do think we've learned a lot over the years with our bad experiences. And I think we should take those learnings and try to figure out what we would have done a little differently and tweak those guidelines.
If Brad was here, he would say one of those guidelines should be never invest in restaurants, right?
Right.
Or hair salons, or bike shops, or
VHS tapes,
or bouncy things. I know.
Sorry, Jessica. I didn't mean to disrupt your presentation.
No, that's fine. This is all just to make our program work well. So we just want to make sure in the coming year that's what we're doing.
Appreciate it.
I think along the lines of, not making this so onerous, the thought that comes to my mind is if these are the groups that are not bankable, they probably have already tried to go to a bank. And so a lot of the information they should already have somewhat together and easily accessible. I hope we're not giving them a list of things that they don't already have, because if they haven't already pulled these things together for any other attempts at funding, then I wonder if we're in the right sequence.
So can I speak up really quick? I've just been evaluating the process a little bit with Jessica. I know you guys just met me last time we met. I'm April. I do have some business training like the rest of you guys do, but one of the steps in the process is for MAG to run a credit report for these businesses or for these individuals. By doing so, we fall under the Federal Credit Reporting Act. So we do have to show some reasoning for denial of credit, provide some, especially if it's based on a credit report. So I think us noticing that has kicked off sort of, okay, well, what other criteria, what thresholds are you going to be working with on these different variables?
Well,
that's kind of where the discussion began too.
Well, and that said, April, and thank you very much for giving us some background about where the question comes from. some of the individuals that I've invested in have terrible credit.
Right.
They started a business and torpedoed and it took them with it, and they're a rebuild. And if we're a fund for rebuilds, we would fully expect that bad credit isn't necessarily an automatic disqualifier.
Absolutely. Well, and that just brought up the idea of where are the qualifiers? Really, where are the thresholds? Not some predetermined rules that have already been, that we're following now because we don't want to take credit risks. It was just something that came to my mind, thought we are, as running background checks, or I'm sorry, credit checks for these folks, we do have a responsibility to respond in a specific way based on our decisions.
Do we run a criminal background check? I'd like to know more about whether or not they have an ankle bracelet than whether or not.
I misspoke. I do HR for MAG, so sometimes I'm doing background, sometimes I'm talking credit. So yeah, no, we don't do the background check.
Okay. That might have avoided that challenge we had in Heber.
I still think that the information that we get from the credit check helps us even in our case-by-case determinations. That if we review the application, we see something that might potentially be a red flag, that lets us know that we may want more information there. But I don't think that's a disqualifier. And as we go through the COVID situation, we may have a number of folks who had to close one business who then are going to re-engage in another business. And that's just, a casualty of what happened.
Right. Well, and I think it was either Mark or Luke that said that spoke well, you all speak intelligence, so let me choose different words. I thought that your comment that we're investing in him, in the person, right?
Yep.
And so this does give us a little insight as to what they've gone through, and to be able to ask questions about that is important as well.
Okay, well, that's all I have for that agenda item.
You didn't get what you wanted, Jessica, but you tried.
I'm happy to serve as needed for the committee, so.
Well, Jessica, you and the whole team do this so well. You're a delight to work with. You administer this program brilliantly. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So the next item, if I'm looking at the right thing, is the 2021 meeting schedule.
Yeah, so we have decided to meet quarterly, whether or not we have applicants, and then to meet monthly as needed when we do have applications. So I guess we just need to set the quarterly meeting dates and then decide if the third Wednesday of the month is the right day if we do have applications.
So feedback from the group about which month in the quarter, the first, second, or third?
Well, is there a time frame we see more activity? I mean, there's a few we kind of want to avoid, right? I mean,
yeah, historically we had not held meetings in July or December just because of holidays.
Okay, so maybe the first would be the more consistent, right?
Yeah, we could do that.
Except July is
the first, yeah.
right.
Well, so you could do. I mean, you're thinking each month or just based?
Well, what we talked about last time was that we could potentially do a quarterly meeting, and so to your point, Mark, if we're trying to avoid months that we historically have not met, then it's really the second month of each quarter avoids the January and the December and the July issues.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So the second month of each quarter.
So let's start with February, May. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
It's good.
That's good for me too.
So February, May, August, and November. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We usually do the third Wednesday of the month. Does that work for everybody still?
Well, but look at Thanksgiving. Is Thanksgiving the third or it's the fourth? Isn't it always the fourth?
Fourth Thursday.
Yeah, so we're good there.
Okay, and then just monthly if we have applications.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on demand.
Okay, that sounds great.
I think that when we start marketing the program again, you know, we had a lot of applications when we were actively marketing. We made a conscious decision when COVID hit to kind of shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going to start ramping it back up again, and as vaccines roll out and the world changes, I think that we're going to see more people take advantage of the program.
What are the counties that are exempt from participation?
So all 3 counties can participate. We've historically not made loans in Provo, Orem, or Lehigh because they have their own CDBG programs. Some of the RLF was originally capitalized with CDBG funds, though currently none of our funds are tied to that. Orem has their own program.
Yeah, it's dormant.
Yeah.
I don't think much is happening with it. Is Provo's active?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, in fact, I know I'm on the Orem board, and we haven't met in almost a year.
Yeah.
Did they? I know that UMLF and then the Salt Lake County is also very sound asleep. Is that all because of COVID or just lack of interest, or do you?
I don't know. I don't have a sense. Does anyone else?
They don't have a Jessica running this thing.
That's it.
It really is it, Jessica. It falls low on the totem pole of the distractions of the city.
Mm.
And I think, as I recall with Orem, that they made the loan to the loan fund quite a while ago. So every year when they get part of their CDBG allocation, part of it goes to pay off the loan or pay off the original, what they put forward. So I don't think the CDBG is putting any more money in. I think it's just paying off the bond that originally started it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that would be possible to roll that over or include it as part of this funding.
The Orem funding, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Wynn's right. I think they have some funding there, don't they, Wynn?
They do, but they haven't met to do anything.
There's not a process to acquire it. So just a thought.
Yeah, so the reason I asked the question is that, you know, Orem and Provo, knowing that Orem's is dormant, and if I can't speak from experience with Provo, but I know Orem is not doing anything to put its money to work.
Mm-hmm. So we could, because our funds that we have available right now are not CDBG funds, we don't have that restriction that we can't fund in Provo or Orem. So we certainly could fund businesses in those jurisdictions right now.
Well, that will help the application a lot in the Utah Valley area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they also have a lot more resources already. So it's like, hey, come on.
No Christmas presents for you.
Well, I think that if we, run out of funds, and then I think we look at restricting where we do it. But right now, we've got some money to put to play, guys and girls. It doesn't do us any good in our checking account.
No, but we also weren't even actively marketing it and we're just starting that process again, letting people know. So
that's true.
I think we need to be fair about that, because before we were always, last year before all of this happened, we were like, there was like $50,000 left or something. So we whittled everything we had down.
I think that our most immediate positive impact for putting funds to work is getting the SBDC aware that there are funds available. So towards that end, John, Jeff, do you want to reach out? I won't reach out to Mike, and you just reach out to your local SBDC office and tell them, hey, we've got cash. I suspect that you'll end up with some applications right away. Okay. So any other items to discuss?
Oh, lastly, I did want to introduce Jack. He is our new economic recovery coordinator. MAG is the economic development district for the EDA in our region, and we got some CARES Act funding to work on economic recovery. And as part of that, Jack was hired as our recovery coordinator. So we are right now in the process of hiring a consulting firm to help us put together a plan, and Jack is going to be leading that and doing the engagement piece of that. So he'll probably be reaching out to you as part of that process too. So we just wanted to have him join and say hi.
Nice to meet everyone. I'm just the silent face watching the meeting. So good to meet everyone. I'm sure I'll be working with all of you at some point on this plan. So
great.
Okay. So any other items to cover in the meeting? We're way past where we thought we'd be by now.
By the way, Jib is a move on a snowboard, in case you all didn't know that. That's how he got his nickname, I'm assuming.
Really?
That's why I said it was a good name for his yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you have a jab with it? Is there a jib and a jab?
Probably not.
Okay, so our next meeting according to our schedule will be February.
Yep, we'll get the invitation sent out.
Okay, then I'll cancel what I have so that you can populate with this new schedule.
Okay.
All right, anybody want to meet to adjourn? I'm hungry.
I'll adjourn.
Okay, Mark, and then Luke seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Hey, thank you all.